All right, Magic Shop, commence. And we're going to finish our workshop discussion tonight. Now with something that is in the rule books and yet is an optional rule that is ubiquitously pasted in front of us. Let's bring up... I want you all, if you're playing along at home, to open up your Pahubba Hubba Hubba Haze to, well, really any page. Now, we left off on the topic in the last segment here that according to the player's handbook, plate mail costs 1,500 gold pieces. That's as much as 3 humanoid souls. Wow. This must be good stuff. Well, given how AC works in D&D, plate mail is pretty good. Pretty good. Are you worth 3 humans, though? Or elves, or whatever? Or... and by the way, I bring this up simply because if we look comparatively, we have determined that the cost of a humanoid life is only 500 gold pieces in vanilla D&D. Life is cheap. I don't know why more people just don't throw themselves into danger. Here we go. Well, all right. So we're getting now into we're getting now into a concept here, DQ. Could look at it this way: if that armor prevents more than 3 deaths, it's worth the investment. And I do agree. We can also talk about, well, we can talk about ultimately availability. Yep, Battletech philosophy, save the metal, replace the meat. Yeah, mech warriors are a dime a dozen. But the mechs, that's the investment. Availability at all. So for example, in my world, and you all can post anime glasses up in chat if you want. In my world, Raise Dead does not exist. I do not allow it as a dungeon master. And I don't allow it because whether it's 500 gold pieces or 1,500 gold pieces, it cheapens life. And if life is cheap, that's not the type of story that I want to tell. Can I? Of course. And I'm not personally offended where I'm clutching pearls or I'm going, those writers on the West Coast with their blah, 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 whatever, sensational clickbait, whatever, okay? I'm not personally offended. I don't feel that this is a moral peril to Western civilization, anything like that. The type of stories I enjoy telling do not cheapen life. If you wanted to run a Grimmer, a grimdark setting or dark fantasy, which can be compelling and emotional and everything else, you know what you do? Life is cheap. In fact, it might be so cheap that Raise Dead might not even have a component cost, or It might just cost, I don't know, it costs 5 gold pieces of something. A material component, or if you want to go gross, or or something to ramp that up, you can be like, well, it costs someone, you have to take an arm from someone else. Now, whether or not that person is living or dead or whatever else, blah, 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 you can see we can play with the cost to get the notion. The stories I like telling have mortal peril. Life should not be cheap. Life should be enjoyed, should be thrilling, and that's where I find my stories to shine. Phoenix Owaki might really tell a tale of with some other bend, and maybe for all I know, Phoenix uses custom rules, adding things or subtracting things. So in this case, it's not even a matter of, well, surely Raised Dead should cost at least as much as a suit of armor, and I raised the price to 1,500. I just don't allow Raised Dead or True Resurrection. I also don't allow extra dimensional spaces. There are no bags of holding. There are no rope tricks. Why would I do that? Well, we could get into that after I get over this part. But let's say you want to keep Raised Dead. Now, I don't know if Coffee Cat is still here. Coffee Cat, if you're here, you're welcome to speak up. Now, Coffee Cat does allow Raised Dead, though the approach is different, more than just a verbal, somatic, and material component in an hour-long casting time spell that eats up a diamond, and there you go. But I'm sorry. In this world, how is the value of the diamond? How is the value of the diamond produced? How is that determined? Against what? Now, we could just go with vanilla prices by the book, but the prices by the book don't talk about availability. Don't talk about scarcity. Is this a raw diamond? Is this a diamond that has to be prepared? Does this world even know the concept of a diamond, or why do they value a diamond in particular? Why a diamond and not a ruby valued at 500? Is that because the ruby would be 10 times larger than the diamond is? And so people would rather have more smaller rubies. Now, we're getting into a lot of variables that I don't want you to go, oh, I have to balance all this. I have to think thoughts about all this stuff. You don't. I'm bringing up the notion that if you do want Raised Dead to exist in your world, you could keep it by the book. And if a life is 500 gold of a diamond, there you go. If you want to control that, there's many variables for it. How common are diamonds? Well, how common are diamonds in our world? In our current world in modern day, there's a jewelry store, and unfortunately, it's a local store. It's been in business for like 40 years. I was sad when I drove by and I saw that it's having a retirement sale. I could go to the local jewelry store. Oh, this is the second jewelry store now, actually. The one downtown, that family jewelry store went out 2 years ago now, I want to say. Well, anyway, I can go get discount jewelry at a jewelry store right now. You want diamonds? Do you want natural diamonds? Do you want artificial diamonds? Lab grown? Do you want moissanite? Does it have to be cut in a particular way? Does it have to be a blood diamond in order to recover the soul of someone who died? Did someone have to die in the procurement of the diamond? You see where there's a lot that can go into this. And you can use this to be flavorful. You can use this to tell stories. And also, high note prisoners, in my world, I don't allow any kind of reviving from death without some kind of communion with an otherworldly being. And then it's also left up to dice rolls with very high DC. I feel death should feel more permanent. That's how I feel. Yeah, I agree. Not everyone might. But I think that life should be valued. It shouldn't just be treated as a commodity. But that's also why I don't allow for extra dimensional spaces. Retirement sales are good. That means they're able to sustain themselves. Oh, I agree. It's not a, desperate, all jewelry must go because I'm literally broke and dying under a pile of hospital bills. The person who ran the local jewelry place. Oh, Goblin of Gygaxanor, close your ears. I'm sorry. No, I guess this local business, it's a willful closing, or maybe no one in the family wanted to pick up the business, or it's just the time to get out of being what's the big diamond and jewelry store cartel? De Beers. Why is my camera off? Maybe it's just not the time to not be in the De Beers diamond cartel. You can compete when you could, and now it's not possible to do, or whatever. Anyway, that's a whole other thing. I'm sure, Goblin of Gygaxanor, if you're here, I'm sure you have particular insight into this, into the situation, or you might still have one of your goblin ears on the rail of what's going on in the jewelry business. But it was sad to see. Most jewelry is overpriced, so I've no idea, says Kragar. Well, it truly is a luxury. Now, in D&D, it's a lot more of a useful commodity because you tend to use jewelry to cast spells or to carry value. This is the other part that a diamond has a lot of value, because do you want to carry 500 coins, or do you want to carry a gem, a little gem in your pocket that is easy to conceal, or do you want to carry 500 coins that jingle, jangle, jingle, such as spurs, I hear. But there's other ways you can use jewelry in D&D. Anyway, so now don't be afraid to look through the spell book and modify, ban spells, add conditions. The spells are all there because they're spells that can exist. They don't have to exist in your game. If you don't want Rope Trick, but you allow Mordenkainen's Magnificent Mansion or something else, if you allow Bags of Holding, just vanilla with no bagmen, or laws, or the risk of breaches, cool. It is what it is. If you do have risks of breaching or risks of bagmen, or in my case, I just don't allow Bags of Holding. If you're going to carry something, you're going to carry it. It has to be a willful exertion of yourself. You make a decision about the value and worth of something. Carrying your fallen friend out, or carrying a treasure chest out, knowing you might not ever be able to go back. Because I want the decisions to have power. I want the decisions to not just be, oh, I have this handy tool called a pocket that I can put things in. Because in a hard magic system, spells are tools. There's nothing necessarily mystical about them. They're known quantities. They may not be common. I've never driven a bus before. Could I? Yeah, and once I see them all the time, and once I've driven it, am I going to start feeling familiar with it and comfortable with it? Yeah. Because I've already seen them. I know buses exist. It'll be a little awkward the first time I drive a bus, but I can do it. I'm confident I can do it. And so it's treated that way. What's the focus of your story? And you might want to modify the spells, the costs, the availability. In our world, you can go grab a diamond from wherever. I am not advocating you commit a crime for it, but all of you should you should have easy access to a diamond if you were in a desperate enough pinch. Because diamonds in our modern world are so ubiquitous, whether they're behind glass or something else, or they're just on so many people's pieces of jewelry that they wear. You want a diamond? I can find you a diamond. Easy. I can order diamonds online and have them delivered to my house. I don't even have to go out. In your world, maybe you do allow for raise dead and you don't even modify it. You modify nothing about the spell. But the player's handbook never specifies how common, how easy to find are diamonds, or how processed must the diamond be. Or who values the worth of the diamond that is 500 gold pieces. Jewelry stores have existed for a while, and, countries have traded in between, but yeah, it would be interesting. I don't have the data. If any of you out there know, or if you've looked into this, or you're a history buff, or a gemologist or something, can any of you out there tell me how common diamonds were in the 1300s, even the 1700s? How common were diamonds? How valued were diamonds? I just talked about the De Beers diamond cartel. Is that going to get me in trouble for saying that? I think they are actually a cartel. Anyway, I don't know, an oligarchy of diamond operators and miners and traders and everything. And you get what I'm saying. A big group, a big controlling group. It wasn't until the popular notion that if you're going to get married, you have to have a diamond ring. Did diamonds really see big increases? And also, as technology allowed for diamonds, more diamonds to be discovered and processed, then we found this way to value them. Because what else do you need a diamond for? I'll tell you, there's a practical use for diamonds. You can put a diamond on the end of a drill bit, and you can do a lot of cool stuff with it because of that hardness factor. Hey, Ryufu! I just finished the jeweler's section of my crafting system. Alexandrite's actually more rare, apparently. Okay, so Ryufu, you are welcome to talk about this notion about adding or including things, and we're not just talking economics, but in your world, if you don't want raised dead, leave it out. If you want it and you could keep it there, how rare is it to find a diamond? And your players might go, well, this is ridiculous. I can't find a diamond anywhere to bring our party member back to life within the 10 days of the window. Yeah. Unless you do something desperate to go break into the royal treasury, you can't just go to a jewelry store in random town and they're going to have a diamond. Now, in your world, gems might actually be ubiquitous, or diamonds might be ubiquitous in a dwarven city as opposed to an elven city. We're getting dangerously close to having an economic lecture. But look at this stuff. Look at what the value of things are, and feel free to modify it. Ray of Enfeeblement, you are welcome to change any aspect of this for whatever reason, hopefully thematic, and that you communicate it with your players beforehand. Maybe Ray of Enfeeblement is one of those spells where you say, I will allow 2 concentrations of this going at one time, at all times or in a special circumstance for a reason. Or maybe you're playing with, this is necromancy, and necromancy has a toll in your world where any necromancy spell doesn't cost spell slots to cast. It costs hit points or something, active hit points or hit dice or something else. And you will allow someone to concentrate on as many necromancy spells as you want, as long as they're paying the price. And especially if you, as the arbiter of this story, you as someone who is a storyteller, but one who is modifying it with the circumstances of the players, if you're playing by those rules as well, and if there's an exception, it can become clear as to why there's an exception, and you're using it for more storytelling. And in this case, under normal circumstances, vanilla D&D, your Ray of Enfeeblement is what you see. And the DMG warns you, be very careful about allowing for multiple concentration spells at one time, let alone the other things that they warned you, don't cross the streams. Is the juice worth the squeeze then? If I told you I will let you cast Ray of Enfeeblement all day, every day, and twice on Sunday for free, as long as you let me have your hit dice. Is it broken? Well, the rules of the world as it's presented, with the consideration put into it, this world was made for this type of exchange. Just like in a world where Aarakocra are an allowable player race, that standard D&D world that allows for flying tieflings and Aarakocra, etc., a lot of people are going to be very good at archery, or the magic that people take is going to shift away from whatever bog standard mechanically advantageous spells are that 90% of everyone takes in every game and can be boring. And you're going to get a lot more Earthbind spells. And if a player says, well, that's unfair, you're stacking this against me. I as the DM am not. You are a powerful force in this world, and it must be met with fear or awe or adaptation. If you can just fly at no cost, save for being able to wear slightly lesser armor, people aren't, unless you are brand new, you just came in from this world, from another world, and no one has seen you or heard of you, they don't know how to deal with you. A world with Aarakocra and flying tieflings, everyone's carrying a sling with rocks. Everyone's casting Earthbind. Everyone is casting super ranged spells or magic missile as an auto targeting system to bring you down because you are a threat. Now, in your world, if everyone's an Aarakocra, the spell selection's a little bit different. Kragar says, through an article I just found out about diamonds in the Discord. Haven't read it yet, just skimmed. Ryufu says, gems are so vague and so complex in their variety. I had vampires develop spells to fight other vampires that counteract their regeneration. Otherwise, they would fight each other forever. Yeah. You start going for what hurts, what hits. If your player says, well, that's not fair, we don't have raised dead. Yeah, well, you know this going into it, don't die. I'm not going to try and kill you, but I will not take death off the table. And if you're going to die, it's going to be meaningful, and I will help you make it meaningful. But I'm also not going to give you a free pass out of death and cheapen your life in the process. So there's ways that you can approach this. And we're talking a lot about magic and fantasy because magic tends to be a big defining feature of any fantasy. Low fantasy, grimdark fantasy, fairy tales and such. And as magic is traditionally getting something for nothing, there's the magic. As it's usually getting something for nothing, what's the cost? What's the squeeze that's producing the juice? Is it a 500? Is it a 500 gold piece diamond? Is it you're literally bleeding your hit dice as a consumable into Ray of Sickness, as well as Ray of Enfeeblement, because these are both necromancy? What kind of a game, thematically, would you be running in a world where magic exists, but you understand that every time you cast a spell, what I don't know what Black Wolf had to say to you after Fav, unless I was tagged in something that I didn't see. I don't. I mean, I'm glad you're here after Fav, but I have no idea what you're talking about. So in this case, keep everything vanilla D&D. You can even keep the casting times and the cost of all that. What if in this world, you as a caster, you had your life shortened by 1 day for every level of spell that you cast? You have nothing. You have nothing to apologize for after Fav. Again, if I'm missing something, if I'm missing a message, I mean, I can take a look. I see you sent me a message. I'm looking in the channels. Heroic Halls. Batispada, thank you for sharing your Heroic Hall. I see Kragar posted an article about diamonds. Okay. Well, in looking at the message you sent after Fav, you're welcome to put that in your finds. Your finds. It has the little, it has the magnifying glass. You're welcome to share it there. Reincarnate, Ryufu, of the comeback to life spells that are in the player's handbook, I am more open to reincarnate because there is a loss of control. It's not a certain controlled outcome, and there's more of a price that is paid for the results. As life moves on, as life happens and flows in strange ways, I am much more open because it's a lot more of a storytelling opportunity. I agree. Now, you might go, haha, I'm playing an elf. Elves in Dungeons & Dragons, vanilla player's handbook, can live 700 years. What do I care for losing a couple days of my life for a spell? I don't know. I mean, you're saying this as a human. What if knowing you would die up to, depending on how heavy of a caster you are, 20 years before your friends or other family members? Or how does elven society take such flippancy? Of course, a tactic in the older edition D&D, an elf would cast haste, because haste would take a year off your life, if I'm remembering correctly. And if I'm not remembering correctly, you all are welcome to mention it up above. But what if casting a spell, you're not paying nothing. You're not even just losing from existence some dumb diamond no one's gonna miss. What if you knowingly paid 5 days of your life? And who determines that? Well, In a mechanical sense, the DM can determine that. How old are you when the adventure starts? Or, knowing that there's going to be some sort of cataclysmic event that would otherwise kill a bunch of people, what if you died earlier? Because your body gave out and you're not around in an emergency. Something an unknown like that can also act as a curbing of over-enthusiastic spell casting. And that does put a value on life, even on Raise Dead, even on Reincarnate. Yep, you gotta wait. You failed that one, Hero. A little thing like that, where spells cost more than just their stated, hard casting facts, can often be just that little bit of a polish, a little bit of taking that hard magic casting off by softening it, by adding that element of mystery, that element of the unknown. Something happens to me when I cast. More than just the stated effect. I have to wonder if what I'm doing is worth it at any point in time. I have to wonder, is it really worth casting this spell knowing or even strongly suspecting that I will live less life? I am paying for immediate effects now by borrowing from my future. That concept can add so much to a game. It can add weight. It can add depth. It can add more than just the I'm playing a game of D&D. I know the spell. I've cast it 100 times on 100 characters because I always play a wizard and I always take this spell, and every D&D world is the same. Even though it's a different module, it's effectively the same world. If you want your world to be your world, tell us how the magic works. Brandon Sanderson did. His changes, how magic works, hard or soft, or the mechanics of it in either way, change between authors and their stories. You don't have to overcomplicate D&D by adding every little... Okay, yeah. So totally, in my world, we're gonna have an honor score and a sanity score, and we're gonna be reliant on healing kits. Oh, this is brilliant. Especially if that's not what your friends or family are signing up to play, and it does feel punitive. If you can use the elements you're presenting in a way that is compelling and meaningful, you will tell an awesome story, and your world will have weight and consequences, and will find a natural balance despite the exclusions of things or the stress of taking other spells instead of what you would normally take. Another thing I proposed: what if in your world all spells were random? You not wild magic like, oh, I went to cast Prestidigitate and I burned down the orphanage with a fireball. Lol lol lol. What I mean, if you take a measure of control away, very overpowering spells, or if magic itself is just, it's a weird animal to try and wrangle, then treat a wizard spellbook like Scrabble tiles. In fact, why don't you do that for the next arcane character or whatever that rolls in your world? Put the spells into a black velvet bag and say, congratulations on leveling up. Here's your magic. Oh, it looks like for this level I have fog and web. Well, these are spells that I've hardly ever taken. I hardly ever have ever seen the use for. I guess I'm stuck with them. Use them creatively. You know, you as the DM GMST, I believe in you. Use them creatively. What can you do? What can you do with fog and web? And also knowing that, yeah, you know what? You might encounter a bad guy who has fireball or magic missile, as those are statistically better spells. How can you make the most of the resources that you have? Therein lies heroism. Therein lies the challenge and the fun and the adaptability. Therein lies the difference between this world and any other generic vanilla D&D game where everyone just chooses the same damn spells over and over again. Hi, Princess Emmy Bear. Bane says, look, orphanages are where 80% of adventurers come from. By eliminating it, I've helped to keep my future rule of the kingdom insured. Spoken like a true villain, Bane. I appreciate your wisdom and service in that regard. And he continues, any random wizard can cast Fireball. A very few can cast Fog and remember where everyone was standing so they can shank a... well, what are we talking about again? And if you've communicated this, you know... what, in Harry Potter, you're randomly assigned, you know, the hat of choosing is like, oh, you're a Gryffindor. In your world, as a sorcerer, as a wizard, you might go, well, yeah, but I have a spell book. These are the spells that come to you. These are the spells that your brain can handle. Look, some people are awesome at math, but their handwriting is atrocious, and they can't, their brain cannot process a novel, okay? You put a math or science problem in front of this person, just like that. And people have it the other way around. Why not wizards in your world? Your brain, for whatever reason, it's not understood, you just get certain spells better. Or maybe there is something biological and you can understand something, it just clicks for you. Not that it's in your blood like a sorcerer, or it's gifted to you like a patron with a warlock. It's just your understanding of how this works. It's there. No one knows why one wizard can cast web and the other can't. They both look at the same spell book and go, I see it. I see the diagram, but I don't get how it works. And the other wizard says, it's easy. Do you see the angle of the two joints here? Yeah. That's what tells you that you need to crook your finger in this direction. It's not working. It's because your finger is crooked the wrong angle. It's like Spider-Man with spider senses. He just knows. It just comes to him because of the vibrations on his little hairs, or it's a part of his powers, right? There are just some things that are instinctual, are a part of you. You just get it because you are made for it. You're equipped for it. And there you go. It's and you can explain it that way. And if everyone understands that's how magic works, in your blood as a sorcerer, you got to draw the same Scrabble tile bag as everyone else. It just manifests through you. If you want to offer, if you want to stick to the bag, it's curated. So, wizards have the wizard spells in the blue bag. Sorcerers have sorcerer spells in the red bag. Warlocks have warlock spells in the purple bag. Blah, blah, blah. Then that's how you do it. So you stick to vanilla D&D straight out of the book that way, but you leave it up to chance. You leave it up so that people cannot just play the carop, the optimal, I'm always casting this spell in this circumstance because it always seems to work, without being contrived. What if you don't have it, but instead you have this other spell that might very well come in handy? There's a lot less pressure on you to have to provide these deadly encounters because your party keeps rolling over everything. And while the players, I hope, would understand, would say, well, that's dumb. Just because I fireball everything, why are you throwing a bunch of fireproof enemies at me? It's because you've murdered 100 of them. They've seen you do it. They know this is your spell, and they're starting to wear asbestos armor. Or they understand that you are such a threat, they are going to shut you down because you and the party aren't the only ones who cast magic in this world. And there are going to be people who are dedicated to counterspelling you, or otherwise dispelling things or baffling you, because you are seen as such a threat by the evil king. And you are going to have to adapt around the fact that they've adapted to you. And so you have this give and take of, one side's getting stronger, it's observed. At some point, the goblins are going to say, we're tired of being roasted. We're either not going to engage, or we are going to just wear asbestos armor, and you can't hurt us anymore. Because it is a living, breathing world. You as an entity in it doing great big things, or hitherto unknown things. Or let's say you are the only magic person in the world. It is a tale in a low or no fantasy setting, and everyone wants to play the story of magic starts. The world is still going to exist because, yeah, you know what? You can cast Fireball a couple times, but in a world where no one else can do that, the evil king is going to rally 1,000 troops and march them against you. And yes, there will be some dead troops from a fireball or two until you run out. But you will be swarmed. You will be overcome. You will be put down because you are seen as dangerous. Because you are, or it's a superstitious, witch hunt thing or something else along those lines. Or in a world where magic exists. And this is anecdotal to me. How many of you have magic jail or magic enforcement, where there are people who will always, who are mage hunters? If you are abusing magic, they will cancel your magic. They will counterspell you. They will dedicate themselves to muting your magic, dispelling you, and you are thrown in wizard jail where you are severed from whatever the source of magic is. And by whatever heavens above or hells below you believe in, if it comes from your blood and they have to sever you from your blood, well, don't get caught being a blood magic user. Whether that's a difference between a sorcerer and a wizard, or whether everyone just believes in a superstition that all magic comes from the blood. Or if it's something like they can just put magic handcuffs on you and there you go, you can't cast. Or they do something that if you're leaning into a grim dark setting, if you don't want a wizard to cast spells with a verbal component, you know what you do? You cut out their tongue. You cut off their fingers so they can't do the magic wiggly jazz hands. That's what happens if you're an offending wizard. Yeah, in our world, I can't help that you have magic, but there's a lot more of us that don't have it, And if you're caught using magic in a bad way, presuming that you're not just killed, we'll take away your jazz hands and we'll cut your tongue out. Because you had a privilege, you abused it, and we don't want that anymore. Hi, Night Mage. Oh, yeah! I should go and check on that. I should go check if I can see it from the sky here in Ohio. But yeah, you will find it. I think that, anecdotally, there are many DMs who are very timid in casting silence, in preserving spells to counterspell, because, well, I don't want my player to feel useless, or I have a wizard, and if he can't cast spells, what is he supposed to do? Well, that's your wizard's problem. That's the challenge to overcome. Unless you're playing the I win game and you just hand them the win. In which case, why are you playing D&D? Just say, oh, you have a cool character. Congratulations, you win. You found the princess, and everyone lives happily ever after. That was a good D&D session, everyone. No challenge, no worries. Treat the party wizard as a threat. That's an honor. Because you know what's happening? Your wizard, by casting all these spells, is either going to sneak some through eventually, or is occupying the resources of the enemy casters so your meleeers can go in and beat them down, or not have to worry about being nuked by the casters that are trying to tame your wizard. And your wizard turns into some taunting menace. Ha! You know what I can do, and I know what you're going to do. And if you don't do it, I am going to be your problem. Now, whether or not that's because you had the Scrabble bag full of spells, or you allowed your players to choose every single one of their spells, you remove days off or months off the end of their life. There's all of these options, but consider these for your world and how they're going to build your story. How are they going to entertain everyone, including you as this manager of the story? Oh, Hero Dragon goes to lurk, and the Hero Dragon MK was never heard from again. The end. Pathfinder 1E has a straitjacket spell. I hit the wizard with that once. Know what he did? Ran back through the door he came from and hid. Yeah. You know how to prevent a wizard from casting? Sticky buns. Oh yeah, because you got that everywhere. And this also comes around also to material components, not just consumable ones. And a lot of people don't like playing with spell component bags because it turns into an inventory mini game, or I don't want to spend a session hunting rare mushrooms in the forest so I can cast this spell. Or I don't want to have to go and buy a piece of amber from a jeweler so I can rub it and get a static spark. Or I don't want to spend some time for a small replica I made from materials worth 5 GP. Because then in that case, I'll say it hyperbolically, the laziness takes over. If you just want the effect, well, there's arcane implements and, a magic wand or a gem or something else. You can play that way too. That's another way if you want to add to your world, slow down or control the rate of magic or how it works, then build your world that way. When was the last time any of you actually cared about your spell components that weren't a 500 gold piece diamond? Have any of you ever actually collected bat guano for a fireball? Or are you always presumed to have bat guano, a pocket full of bat poop on you every day, such that you cast it that often? Or have you ever played with the minutia of tracking, I have 3 pinches of bat guano. I can cast fireball 3 times, and until I go buy or find more bat guano, that's it. That's another way to control fireball spam or anything else. Let's take a look at something like Magic Missile. But because a lot of us, and I'll include myself, don't want to play accountant, or we don't want to, we feel like we're losing story By playing dumb little scavenger hunts, we leave a lot of storytelling or world building on the table. Or we have the thing where magic missile's not or fireball isn't special because we just presume you can cast it all the time. Because yeah, I have a magic implement, unlimited uses. I just have it all the time. Magic missile, it's just verbal and somatic, so you can do it all the time so long as you have the right amount of fingers and a tongue. Or at least you can make the silly noises in some other way. How about this? Magic Mouth. A small bit of honeycomb and jade dust worth at least 10 gold piece, which the spell consumes. As a second level spell. So it's in the book. There are rules here, but often they're just glazed over. And some of us might be wondering, wow, this world feels so samey like every other D&D world. Well, what are you ignoring? What aren't you leaning into to build your story? When was the last time that you had a bit of fleece? Now, Major Image doesn't say it consumes the bit of fleece, but what happens, what happens if, I don't know, it gets wet? Doesn't say it has to be dry. Or what happens if it could get lost, or it's stolen from a component pouch. But nothing hurts a wizard or another caster more than disarming them of their spell components, implements, or holy symbols. Let's go over to... Yep, a tiny ball of bat guano and sulfur for fireball. But it's something that you're choosing to play with or ignore. Casting some spells requires particular objects specified in parentheses in the component entry. A character can use a component pouch or a spell casting focus in place of components specified for a spell. But if a cost is indicated for a component, a character must have that specific component before he or she can cast the spell. If a spell states that a material component is consumed by the spell, the caster must provide this component for each casting of the spell. A spellcaster must have a hand free to access a spell's material component or to hold a spellcasting focus, but it can be the same hand that he or she uses to perform somatic components. Yeah, is that a spell focus? I'm going to pickpocket it. Because it's very clear when your wizard is casting through a glowing gem that's firing magic missiles and all this other stuff, this is what you go for. You disarm, or you otherwise go for, because without this, the wizard can have phenomenal cosmic power but have no way to channel it. This is a world, however, where magic, it's a hard magic system. People know how it works. In Lord of the Rings, no one really knows how Gandalf casts his spells or what he necessarily needs or consistently uses. And if you want to present a softer style of D&D magic, either let the NPCs, which are enemies or like friendlies or whatever, let them be the magic users, so everyone just worries about themselves as a person who can always do the things a person does. Or add some more mystery to it, or randomness, or more ways of loss, or minutia tracking. But if you do, don't make it a grind. Make it a part of the story. Make it a part of something interesting. Have fun on a downtime finding spell components or buying it from the wizard store. In which case, you're buying your spell uses. You're buying the fuel for your fireballs, one ball of bat guano at a time. And maybe you, as an adventurer, can make a lucrative living farming bat guano and selling it to adventurers. That's what happens when you retire as a wizard. You get into animal husbandry. You live outside of a cave, or you build a tower that attracts a bunch of bats, and there you go. So there's many variables, rules, considerations, things you can drop, things you can add. There's meta context about who's playing in your game. There's the questions of what type of game do you want to play by genre, or by fantasy genre, subgenre. What type of magic system do you want to use? There's a lot to consider, and I don't want any of you to fall into analysis paralysis, where you go, there's too much, and I can't balance it all, and I don't know enough about economics, and I don't know, I just want to play D&D. And then you just go back to playing vanilla D&D out of the book. Everything is everything. The same people take the same stuff every single time. And you say, that was fun. That made happy brain chemicals. And if it did, then cool. If everyone made happy brain chemicals, you played and you won the game. If you want something that's not just generic whatever that you've played before, consider these. Have it be meaningful. Have it be engaging and not just another box to check off or another stat to track and treat as a number. Because hit points or sanity or these other things that you treat as a number can demean the value and impact of that thing.